Okay, going to go through these. This is actually Michelle's, or I'm not sure if you guys saw hers initially. And this was actually her thumbnail sketches. She didn't do the pencil thumbnail sketches. She obviously has some computer skills, and so she kind of basically did what our end product should look like. However, I think she used a pixel-based drawing program, and we're really focusing on a vector-based drawing program. They're two very different software applications, and when you're doing logos or graphics for t-shirts, if you want to use a vinyl plotter, they have to be in vector form. So hers look great, don't get me wrong, but she would need to, like I said, recreate these in Illustrator. And so she can just take the best 12 of these and finish up, excuse me, her final project. But she's still probably going to need to do the step that you guys are doing. You're doing it from your pencil sketches and then creating the lines in Illustrator. She's doing it from creating these in a different software application. But for them to be vectors, they will have to be created in a vector-based drawing program, which is Illustrator. But I did want to make some notes of things that work well based on just the different types of lines that she's creating, and also how it fills the space. A lot of your solutions are kind of too minimal. They're not doing a very good job of, like I said, really filling the square space. And so you can see here that all of hers do that. Not that white space is not acceptable, because down here this solution uses a lot of white space. This is making use of white space. This is making use of white space. I mean, actually, they all are making use of white space, because you have your positive, which are your lines, and your negative space, which is your white space. But it still fills the shape nicely. Just seeing some other ones that have more white space. So again, this one, you know, very nice as this one. But the majority of them have a lot going on. And it just makes for visually interesting lines, and that's the whole intent of this project, to create as many different style lines as you can. And you can see how the style of these lines is different, very different than the style of these lines, and even of these lines as they transition from thick to thin. So like I said, she can then take these and import them into Illustrator. The other thing that I wanted to point out is that when you are creating your final squares, make sure that your artwork is going to the edge of the square. You can actually extend it out past the square, because you'll be cutting these out. In Illustrator, you can extend it past and then create a clipping mask, which then clips it in the shape. But you do want your artwork to bleed off of the edges anywhere you have a line that goes to the edge, unless it's something like this that intentionally is, you know, not supposed to go to the edge. But that just creates a stronger interplay between positive space and negative space. So again, seeing these line, this line, here, 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 here. Now, if you look closely, this one here actually doesn't. And that's what you want to do. You want to make sure that you have this and not where you have these little tiny white gaps. I think there was one more. Yeah, right here. See the little tiny white gap? This is also, you can see this is pixelating because it's not vector-based artwork. And I'll show you the difference when I zoom in on someone else's as to that's why vectors are resolution independent, and that means they're always going to be sharp and crisp and clean and never pixelate. And that's what we're looking at here when I do that, and that's pixelation. Okay, so let's start with Alyssa's. And there was something that I didn't tell you to do, and I should have, and that is when you're importing your artwork. Now Alyssa's is here, so her scans are there, which is nice because then I can turn that off and on. That's the whole purpose of it, so that I can see the sketch, and then I can see the artwork, and then I can see the artwork without the sketch. However, when you go to place a file, if you don't embed that file, then it's not going to be there when you submit it or send it, if you were to send it via email. So when you Command-Shift-P to place a file, make sure that, let me just find a file I can place. Goodness gracious. Do I have, there we go. I don't even know what that is. Right down here. So if link is checked, then the file doesn't come along with it. But if it's unchecked and you place it, then it does. Okay, this is the artwork from the quizzes. So I'll show you the difference. If you go to your links palette, it will show you what files are embedded. And so if it has a little square and a triangular shape out beside it, then you know that that's embedded. And then here's hers as well, that shows that they're embedded. If you placed a file and you linked it and you didn't embed it, then this wouldn't be here. And again, when you send the file, those files wouldn't come along with it. You would have to send those files in addition to sending your Illustrator file. Okay, all right, so that's a little note on that. Okay, so now in looking at Alyssa's, turn the scans back off, you can see actually she's done a pretty good job of filling the space, and some of her lines look better than other lines. When looking at this one, for example, this line here, and it doesn't actually on the screen look as intense as on the printout, but at any rate, you don't want any of your lines when you look at it overall to stand out too much. And so this line, because of the weight, this one and this one, and this one's 5 and this one's 2, stand out a little bit too much. So I would bump the weight of that one down a little bit, and maybe that one as well, just so that, like I said, it's not dominating over anything else. Now, depending on what your subject is, like what your word is, what you're communicating, if you wanted something to stand out, like oppressive, for example, and you were creating a big, thick, heavy line, crushing down on little thin lines, then that would make sense. But if it's not helping to communicate your idea, then be careful of that. All right, because as a graphic designer, you're in control of everything that you do. All right, so and now because I made that smaller, I would take the arrow keys and just tap that down a little bit, so that it's not showing the little bump that was there. Same thing here. This one can just go up a little bit, because the thing is, especially with logos, when we get into logos and using lines, every single line in and of itself has to be an attractive line as well. And so like this one, for example, printing at 100%, this gets real muddy and almost turns into a shape. And so in this sense, she could really go in and with the direct select tool, get rid of kind of the lines where they're overlapping. Oh, direct selection tool, and then the delete anchor point tool. So I'm going to get rid of that line. All right, and then I'm going to get rid of every other line. Well, that's probably good. And then with the direct select tool, if we wanted to move this one over a little bit. you know, just kind of, so then it's similar, but it's not filling in, and it still works as lines. And the other disadvantage I have, realizing, is I don't really know, with just looking at these, what words are being communicated. So I'm not really focused on the communication at this point. I'm really just focused on Illustrator and creating lines and the tools used to do that. So again, it's also cleaner if you don't have lines where they're overlapping. So again, this would be the direct select tool. And so if you shift select, I can shift select these 3 anchor points just to move that down away from that piece. You could do the same thing here if you wanted to with these. This one you might actually want to move up just a little bit. So it just allows you to manipulate more of your points that way. Okay. See what else we got. Now again, this one was a little tough for me because I'm not sure, you know, what she's trying to communicate. So if she's trying to communicate turbulent, then this is probably okay. However, I think she has enough feeling of the turbulent with the outside lines going in at different angles, and then also the lines within here. And so what happens is, even though it's communicating turbulent, these lines are kind of ugly, and it's because they're just not very smooth lines. So you can smooth out your lines by selecting your line and then going underneath the pencil tool is the smooth tool, and it's actually underneath the shaper tool. So it looks like this, and you click and hold, and there's pencil and there's smooth. And what the smooth tool does is, and you have to actually have it selected, and then the smooth tool. See how it has all of these points, and the more points a line has, the bumpier it's going to be. So using the smooth tool, it's not drawing anything, it's just smoothing out those lines. See how it's getting rid of some of the points, and it's making them then much smoother. So you're just kind of dragging it in the direction that you want it to go. I'm going to do both of these, and then you can see the difference. So again, you can see it's just kind of getting rid of some of those points. Okay, so now you can see the difference between these lines and these lines. And so these still have the feeling, this still feels turbulent, if that's what it is. Hopefully it is. But it just has a cleaner, more professional look overall because of the smoother curves. Okay, so that smooth tool is like a great tool for smoothing out bumpy lines. So again, as you can see, it's just taking away the number of anchor points. Okay. All right, now then you'd have to go in and clean up a little bit, although it's not too bad. Just move it in a little bit, just so you don't have any little bumps or nicks. And those aren't bad. Those look actually pretty, I assume that's indecisive. Those curves look pretty nice. That's nice and clean there. That's the brush tool. The brush tool, the thing is with the brush tool is it's actually an effect. And so it can't be rendered or cut on a vinyl plotter until you actually expand appearance, and then it turns it in to a true graphic. But this would be a nightmare cut on the plotter. So we typically stay away from using the brush tool because that's more of a painterly tool. And this, I'm not sure what it is, but I'm not digging the way these two are overlapping in comparison to everything else. So again, just selecting that and just moving it over ever so slightly, and hopefully that's still communicating the same. Okay, and these curves look pretty good, but these are kind of ugly here. So again, there's not a whole lot of curve in this, so I don't know how much. Yeah, there's actually quite a few points. So again, that smooth tool would again smooth that out and make those look much better. You can see it's got all those points, and just so we'll do that for each one of those. Just smooth all those out a little bit, and don't let things touch again. So you can move that up there. this is fine here. A little mess right in there. So again, I wasn't sure how that was drawn. So let's see what that is. Okay, well that, I guess, the way it's drawn in and of itself is a little strange. So you may be better off here to just use the pen tool, and so that you're creating, you know, one shape that you would then put over there instead of trying to do, it need to be rotated to get on that. Instead of trying to do, which it looks like here, 2 and 2, because then you have to make them line up perfectly. So that's a modification that can be made. And then this is kind of weird too, the way you have all of these kind of ending, and then this one is extending so much. Oh, it looks like that you did do that there. So yeah, so. And then you can also option shift and duplicate, and then that one can be rotated to, you know, to look a little, oops, I didn't really mean to do that, to look a little different. Okay, let's see what else we got. Same, you already said there, smoothed out those. Same thing here. Like, again, these are just not very attractive lines. So again, taking that smooth tool, just smoothing out those lines. It just makes such a difference. You can see, you know, the difference between this line and the other lines there. And then again, I think I already mentioned this. This is where you got to be careful, where you don't want one thing to be too massive. And this could be a little bit heavier than your other line, but right now it's a bit heavy. So here you can also select one and then do select same stroke weight, and then it selects all instances of that same weight, and then we can go down maybe 1 or 2 points, and then it just is a little bit more elegant there. So it's different than these others, but it's just not quite as massive. It doesn't stand out quite as much. And then you kind of have to go in and, you know, like I said, clean up your spots. So you got, you know, here where this is kind of should be a continuation of this, but for some reason it goes off into here. I guess as you've done that in each corner. But here you've overlapped it, where here you have an opening. So here you have an opening, here, you know, it's not touching, so that consistency is helpful. And then like here, let's see what we got going on here. Yeah, so here what you may want to do is actually just, again, with your pen tool, delete that unnecessary anchor point, and then you can take, and if you have 2 open endpoints like this, you can select shift, select the 2 open endpoints and Command J, and that will join them. Okay, and then anywhere you had something like that that's overlapping, you would you know, just clean these things up. How much nicer that is, cleaner. So again, here, if you need to drag it out, take this one to here. So yeah, all this is attention to detail, and is very important for graphic designers. Yeah, so those little changes will make a big difference, and then you'll take your best 12 of these and put into the larger scale template that I've already made a video and showed you how to do that. So I was going to go through all of these, but I think that's going to make for a really long video. So because I went over 2 people's for this one, I think I'll just do at least 2, and then I would hope and wish that you would take the time to go and look at everybody's. But at least, of course, watch the video for your own. Okay, that's it for now, and I'll do 2 more people in just a minute. Okay, For the final for the line project, the first thing that you need to do is go into Moodle and download the template that I have provided for you called Line Project Final Template. And click on the template. Make sure that you're using either Chrome or Firefox. If you use Safari, you can have some problems downloading the files. So anyway, in Chrome, you click on it, it puts it down here, just click on it, and it opens it up in Illustrator. And I already had one open, so it opened a new one, but anyway, we only need one. Okay, so you're going to be taking of your 16, your 12 best, and you can see this is 12 squares, and these are also larger squares than your originals, which you'll be able to tell in a moment that they are larger in scale. And this is where you're going to copy and paste your best 12 into this file. Alright, so I have one of the students' files here, and you can see their scans layer, so we're going to turn that off so that you can just select the artwork. And so the easiest way to select the artwork is to use your selection tool and click and drag around the selection so that you're sure to select everything. And then Command G to group that so that it moves as one unit. And then you're going to Command C to copy it, and then you're going to go to the template that I provided, the line project, and you're going to place this file, or actually copy and paste your artwork into this file. Okay, now you may run into this as well. It says you are attempting to paste or drag into one or more layers that are locked or hidden. So as you can see, the squares layer is what's highlighted. That's the active layer, and it's locked, and we want it to be locked because we want these squares to be on top of the artwork. And so it says, do you want to unlock? And no, we don't actually. So I need to select the correct layer, so I'm going to say no, and then I'm actually going to make the artwork layer active because that is where we want the artwork to go. And now when I Command V to paste, I don't get that error message, and I get the artwork, and I'm going to move it up here to this first square. Now you're also going to see when you click off of that artwork, it's gone, and the reason is because the squares are on top, because they're on the layer that's on top, and we want that. However, we don't want the squares to have a white fill because that's what's happening. So I have to actually unlock this squares layer. And I think what I will actually do is fix this and re-upload the file so that you don't have to do this step. But it's good for you to understand what's happening here. So as I said, you can see now I have all the squares selected, and that right here it shows you that there is a white fill on those squares. So I'm going to bring that white fill to the front, and then I'm going to click None. And now you can see the artwork. And then I'm going to lock this layer back so that those squares don't move by accident. So as I said, I'm going to re-upload the file, but it will not have the white fills on it, so you won't have to deal with that issue. And that layer will be locked. But we do want the square on top. Now, there's something very important within Illustrator when you're dealing with scaling artwork up or down, and that is that your lines scale proportionately. So right here is the scale tool, and we're going to double click that scale tool and then change, this always should be selected, scale, strokes, and effects, and the default is for it to not be selected, but because I've been using this computer, it is selected, and it should always be selected. So make sure that you have the checked box for scale, strokes, and effects, and then when you scale your artwork and go back to the selection tool, make double sure that you are holding down Shift when you scale it so that you do not distort your artwork. Now if you want to scale from the center outward, if you hold down Option and Shift, you can scale from the center out. Maybe if I can drag it properly. Okay. And you want your artwork to go all the way to the edges, and it can actually even go a little past the edges, because as long as it doesn't go into the square beside it, you're going to be cutting these out. You're going to actually cut the square. And so it's better if all of your artwork actually goes to the edges and there's no white gaps. Alright, so I'm going to do another one. I'm going to go back over here. I'm going to choose this one. Okay, so again, I'm going to copy it. I'm going to go over here. I'm going to Command V to paste it. And this time I'm going to move it up to the corner, but I'm going to go ahead and extend it out past the edges just a little bit. I've already done the double click and the scale, so once you've done it for that document, you don't have to do that each time. Once you've changed it, it's now changed until someone unchanges it. Okay, and so again, scale it up so that you're just past your edges. Now, for some reason, you needed to scale it up, and I'm just going to, well, I didn't group that one before I copied it over, so that was one step that I forgot. So again, select it and Command G to group it, and that way you don't lose any of your little pieces. And let me do one more here. So I select this one, Command G to group it, Command C, and then Command V to paste it. So let's just say for some reason that I wanted it even bigger. And you can see now, with it being that size, that it actually is going into that square. So if for any reason you have that as an issue with it going into another square, you can create a clipping mask. So to create a clipping mask, you just take your square tool or your rectangle tool, again hold down Shift because this is still a perfect square, right? And now I have a square drawn, and then I'm going to Shift select my artwork, and Command 7 creates a clipping mask, and then it clips it within that square. So you could do each one of these if you wanted to, but because you're cutting them out, you don't really need to do that. But again, I'll do each one of these just to show you, to make sure you know how to do it. So again, draw the square, select both the square and the artwork. So again, to select, oh, and see, I didn't group that one either. Okay, so now Command G, but the square can't be in that grouping. Oops. Okay, so selecting this, and it is in that grouping. Okay, so again, you can't, I didn't want the square that I drew to be part of that. Okay, so the square underneath would, oh, I didn't mean to do that. Hold on, Command Shift Z. Okay, the square underneath would not be selected because it's in a locked layer. But I did need to group that. Okay, now that that is grouped, I'm going to draw that square again that I'm using for the clipping mask. So again, holding down Shift and selecting both the square and the artwork, and Command 7, and you can see, like I said, it's containing it. But again, that's not really necessary because you're going to print this and you're going to cut each one of these out and then mount them individually to the black illustration board. And we're going to mount those for the students that are in the classroom. We're going to mount those on Thursday. So today all you need to do is to get your artwork scaled and put into this template by choosing what you think your best 12 are. Print this out and turn this in. Leave this for me at the end of class. For those of you that are online, I'm going to be giving you your feedback on your Illustrator work before you do this step. All right, these are a lot of the same comments, so hopefully you've watched the other videos ahead of yours, and if you haven't, then I suggest that you do that because I went through those and did a lot of detailed explanations of things that you can do to strengthen your line project. So this one is Yvonne's. And Yvonne, yours is, I'm not sure what has happened. Make sure that you're watching the videos and that you're using the files that I give you, because this file only has one layer, and so I can't turn off your scans. All I can see is your artwork on top of your scans. And I can't manipulate these in any way to help you because it's, oh, actually I can, actually, let's see. Okay, so that's good actually, because we can just at least now move these out of the way. And one thing I actually did appreciate with this one was that the words were there so that I could tell. Okay, however, your should be working with squares. So again, make sure that you're downloading the templates that I'm providing for you, because I've given you the square shapes to use. So your end products, are going to be contained within a square shape, not a rectangular shape. So you can make some modifications, and I would probably, like I said, just go and do that clipping mask so that you can, I don't know what that is. Oh, that's interesting. We don't need, well, I don't know if I can do this or not, so because this artwork seems to be contained as part of this overall square shape, and we don't really want that. I was trying to select all of your artwork and the square to be able to create a clipping mask. Let me see what's going to happen. Okay, yeah, there. So, your end product would look more along the lines of this. I should have actually copied and pasted that. Let's see. Okay. So that it's all contained, right? And that's going to look better, and then I can put that square shape. So that's, what your end product is going to look like, which is filling that shape much better than the way it was before. The other thing that you have going on is you have a lot of shapes. And I know this is only one of your files, and it was supposed to be a multi-page file so that I didn't have to download 4 different files, and I don't even know where they all are now. But at any rate, these are shapes. This is a triangular shape. This is a shape. This is a shape. These are triangles. So you're going to need to go back and make sure that in your solutions you don't have any shapes, only lines. And then you want to create a variety of lines as far as line styles, because this style, even though it's angular, and these, even though some of these are curving, they're just a mono weight line. So you want to work with some of your different line options and weights and whatnot to get more variety. Okay, so we got here Timothy. All right, so Timothy, his sketches aren't there either, nor are his squares, but you can see that they actually are all filling the square shape. So the biggest thing that he's going to need to do is this cleaning up process that we've been talking about. Going in and getting rid of any overlap or things that when you zoom into them just aren't that attractive. So we'll be coming in, and maybe deleting some of the shapes that are in there. I don't know that you need that one and that one, and then you got an extra one right there. So, oops, so that one's a overlapping. So that'd be where you'd have to go in and take your direct select tool and select it. Maybe delete one of those. You got to see some mess going on in here. Looks like, I'm not sure again exactly what's going on here. Oh, I'm already as maxed out as I can be. I don't know what's going on with your file size either. It's a little strange. So again, you know, what is happening here? I've got to actually, I'm already at the largest scale that I can be. So I don't know. Your file is kind of wonky because when I went to type your name, oh goodness, did it crash? Yeah, see, I'm already at like 2,000%. Okay. I was just trying to scale this up and weird things are happening. So I'm not sure what's going on with your file. But as I said, you've done a good job. I'm looking at these, I can tell as far as filling the space. And make sure none of these close. If they're open like that, it's still technically a line, but if they close, it becomes a shape. So your thing you really just need to do is go in and just make your lines more attractive. Now that's kind of nice there. You got some 3-dimension going on. But yeah, and then also too, all of your lines are very similar as far as the weight, and they're all kind of look like they're hand drawn. So you can use some pen tool to make the curves. You can use looks like you've used the pencil tool for quite a bit, maybe varying some of your weights. But yeah, the biggest thing is just cleaning up a little bit. Right, we did that. We did Yvonne's, we did Timothy's. Traquan, so kind of the same thing. Just need to go in and make things a little bit cleaner. I'm assuming that's not even supposed to be there. So go in with your the pencil tool, the curve tool, I mean, and see just what do we have going on there. So that's an extra something. That's extra, or maybe the other piece was actually extra. Not sure. And again, open endpoints, direct select tool, select the 2 open endpoints, Command J closes things out, and then you can select them, go to the smooth tool, and then just smooth out those shapes a little bit. See, I don't know what's going on right there with that. It's kind of an overlapping, so it looks like delete anchor point and delete that overlap. Yep. Sometimes too, if you want them, you can actually put the end caps on them. So if you go to your window and your stroke palette and see the cap can be rounded, and that just looks a little bit more complete as the end rounds versus just being kind of chopped off. See the difference between these rounded ones versus the hard chop there. And again, you know, with your smooth tool, going in and kind of smoothing out your shapes. And those are, you know, drawn quite differently. So next to the other ones, they're not going to be, but so much variety here. Okay, so anyway, go in and clean up and smooth out. Clean up and smooth out. It's the same thing here. You know, just smooth these curves out. See how much better that looks, just that one little, yeah. So again, now this wouldn't fill that space very well, and it's harder to tell, so I would put your squares back on there. Now you turn your, yeah, you can tell better as far as, now this is nice. I assume this is prickly, and this is an instance where having this one be heavier makes sense as it stands out. Not so sure how that's interacting right in there. But again, if that was maybe rounded off, it might look a little bit better here. You got a little gap there, and then not sure what's going on right in there. And I see what you're doing. You're breaking these lines as far as cutting that up, and that's okay. So yeah, just a little bit of cleanup. This is nice too, as far as how that looks. Again, some cleanup could happen in here, but I like the way this looks and kind of how this isn't working over here. So, so let's see, the stronger solutions, definitely this one and this one. Let me turn this back on because again, I can just tell better with that square. Makes a big difference. So see, yeah, this one looked very incomplete without the square, but when you look at it this way, I mean, you see that contour and you see that you have a nice balance between this side of the square and this side of the square, then that one's not bad. That's not bad. So 1, 2, 3, that needs some work. 4, 5, 6. So at least half of them are good as is, and the other ones you can clean up some more. I was just kind of trying to look too and see if maybe, yeah, even this one's nice, even though I think I would have chosen this one over this one to recreate, but don't spend too much time redoing at this point because we want to finish up this project and move on with the next one. Okay. All right. So who else we got here? So let me close these out so that I know I've got everybody. And I talked about Tim's. I really like this one. I assume that's smooth. It looks like wood grain, but again, if those lines were even smoother, that would be a stronger solution. Okay, so I did this one, and I think I did this one, yeah, because we talked about, yeah, that's right, because your file is a little weird. You might want to copy and paste your artwork into a new file because it's doing some strange things. So again, I don't think we have the squares there. Yeah, so this one works, this one works, this one needs to be smoothed out, this one's probably okay. All of those seem to work on this page, this one, but I'd say the rest of them could use more work. And what we got left? Oh, and Ashley. Okay, now Ashley, yours is probably the one that needs the most work because they're just not filling the space very well. And then these really look like, that looks like a little pig illustration, and that looks like a little cat illustration. So you want to stay away from illustrations, and then you definitely want to anything that you have that, you know, like I said, that you want to smooth out. But overall, yours just look really messy. All of them are just really kind of sloppy looking. Everything is. So you're going to want to work on cleaning those up. Now this one works. I assume that's probably scatter. And these, like I said, are a little dominant in relationship to what else is in there, and then this just seems a little lacking. This is probably supposed to be prickly, and that would be okay, but again, you know, that should be touching there. These probably were supposed to line up here. Yeah, so you just want to create some more visual interest and try to fill your space better, especially if you're looking at yours in comparison to some of the others. And that's how we have to do in this field. I mean, it's a very competitive field, and when you go out and get a job, you're showing your work and you are competing. So you do have to measure yourself next to your competitors. And so make sure that you are watching, especially that first video, because it's like 20 minutes, because I'd spent a good bit of detail talking about this and how they should fill the space and showing some examples and cleaning up artwork, etc., etc. And then if you have any questions, any of you have any questions, we'll put again a link for discussion board forum, so that if you have any specific questions that relate to the project or relate to the critique that I've given here, just post them, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. All right, this is Chanel's. So again, you know, with these lines, excuse me, and making each line attractive in and of itself, trying to make your um, curvy lines smoother. But again, if this is anxious or turbulent or slovenly, then the sloppier lines would be acceptable. But I don't know if that's the case. So if it is one of those things, then that's fine. But if it's not, then again, just make sure you know how you're smoothing these out. And again, you just take the selection tool and the smooth tool, which again is underneath the shaper tool, pencil, then smooth, and then just click and drag to smooth them out. So let's see what we got here. So all hers are actually filling the space pretty well. With this one, you may want to actually extend these. Okay, so I'm selecting the square too. So let me lock that. Okay, which you can do by just dragging with your direct select tool, which will just select those endpoints, and then you can just extend them up. And you can really do past the square because, as I said, we're going to actually cut it out. So if this still communicates the same thing, then just visually that's going to look better. But I don't know, like I said, what she's trying to communicate here because I don't have that in front of me. And so that may have changed her communication altogether. So I'm just looking at these, as I said before, from a visual perspective. Now these are a little bumpy as well, but it seems to work here because there's the consistency of all of that. And again, that may be turbulent here. Now, again, these are just not that attractive as far as lines go. So if this was slovenly, then maybe that would be okay, but let's just pretend that it's not. Okay, so again, I'm going to lock that, and then I can select these for one thing just to extend them out. And if that changed your shape too much by any chance, of course, you could just select them all and then group them, or you don't even have to group them, but if you just selected them off, if it made a change that you didn't like, and just shift. The biggest thing when you're scaling is make sure that you're holding down shift. And then I would just go in here with the direct select tool and just get rid of some of these extra lines that I feel like are not necessary. Sorry about that. Some of these extra lines. Not sure exactly what's going on in here. Oop, nope, that didn't work. Okay, but maybe this one here. And then this one, or is it this one? Oh, that one's kind of going back and crossing over it, so I can't clean that up but so much other than going to the direct select. I meant to the minus pen tool and just clicking on them to get rid of the points. And it's telling me I have to be right on the point. Okay, and then you can pick back up with the pen tool where you left off and then go. Same thing with this. I can pick up back off where that pen tool is and go back here. I'm afraid that call was my electrician. So if he calls back, I may need to answer just to tell him that my daughter's there. Now, see, I can see there's a little extra piece there that doesn't really need to be there, and something's going on here. So maybe with that one, just extending it down so that little white part goes away. This, just moving it back. Okay, and then you can actually take care of cleaning this up. Again, like I said, you're going to print these out. You're going to cut them out so you get rid of these lines that are extending out past. But if that's just ugly to you and you want to fix it, and I can totally relate to that, hold down shift to make the perfect square. And then it doesn't really matter what the weight is because it's going to disappear anyway. So you would select the square and the artwork. However, the artwork first needs to be grouped. Okay, and I'm going to draw that square again. Okay, and now you have to have the square and the artwork selected at the same time, so you have to hold down Shift and then Command 7. And then, as you can see, that creates the clipping mask, and you can tell better what you're going to get as an end product. But again, I would smooth those out. Again, here too, it's just when you have these overlapping things, it just kind of makes things messy. So selecting and getting rid of some of these overlaps, or like I said, if it overlaps in, you can just move it. I'm not sure which one this one is. Yeah, that's probably not necessary there. Okay, so it's just cleaner overall. Same thing here with this curve again, with the smooth tool, just going and smoothing that curve out a little bit. Yeah, it's just, like I said, it just makes it a little bit neater. And then, again, we want that to extend to the edge there. See what we got over here. Prickly, obviously, that looks pretty good. Indecisive, I can tell these exhausted. That looks nice there. That's a nice treatment. And this one, I'm not sure. Yeah, so this one again, very messy. So you can get the same feeling, but again, and I don't know in this scenario if it's easier to try to smooth all those out or actually just redraw them. And remember, when you use the pen tool, you're going to get your more precise curves. And the pen tool is just a matter of clicking and dragging to get your angles. And then you go back with your direct select tool and manipulate your handles to get the curves the way you want them to be. Okay. Okay. And again, even that little part right there could be smoothed out a little bit. Okay. All right. Overall, those look pretty good. And again, remember, you're just choosing your best 12 of these 16. Okay, and let's also do, oh, that's the end product. Let's also do reins. Okay, so again, you want to just make sure that you're filling the space nicely, so or that you're making good use of white space. So I mean, these are balanced in the space, both of these. Now, truthfully, this looks like an eye and this looks like lips, and you're not supposed to be drawing illustrations, but these are borderline, I would say, that are subtly, like, they're close enough to, being use of line that I would accept these. So I assume this is exhausted because it looks like a very tired eye. I assume this is sensual because it looks like lips, but you're really supposed to try to stay away from drawing illustrations. But now some of these are much stronger than the others. So all of these on this page work pretty well. And then these are very different styles, but they still work pretty well as well. Now this one, not so much, because that's just, like I said, it's just not very attractive. So that would not be one that I would choose. I assume that that's distracted, but again, your lines in and of themselves could be more attractive. And this is different. I guess that's probably prickly, but it works as a whole. This one looks kind of like an onion, so I'm not sure what it is. But again, you got two lines going on here, so getting rid of one of those lines, I think this is actually grouped. And it's still kind of communicating the same thing. I'm not sure that's the one that you'd want to get rid of. Oh yes, I guess it is. So that's kind of the extra one. And if you want something thicker in different areas, you can use the width tool. So with this tool, if you want a thicker area, you just select, this looks like a banana, but it's called the width tool, and it allows you to click and then expand areas. So if you wanted areas to be a little bit wider in different places, that's a nice tool for doing that. And then you can also, if I wanted to move this out away from this a little bit, you can click on your, you have to hold down Shift to select all of these anchor points. And then I can simply take my arrow keys and move that up, down, out, around to open up that space a little bit more. And again, this is something, you know, that could just be cleaned up a little bit. I'm not sure what that piece is right there. Oh, again, so yeah, it's 2 pieces, 3 pieces. So instead of overlapping stuff, just go in there and use your width tool to get your thick and thins instead of overlapping, and that'll clean that up a lot. Again, I'm not sure what this is actually communicating, but it is a good example to show you how to use the width tool. Okay, so as I said, all 4 of these work well. These 3 work well. That one not so much. And coming over here, this one's okay. These 2 not so much. This one's okay. This one breaks up the 2 pieces kind of nicely. That's maybe indecisive, not sure. This works pretty well. Again, this is kind of just ugly. I mean, look at it. So, again, when you're creating these, you have to make sure, and this is really important when we get to logo design, that every single line as an individual line is attractive in and of itself. And then, of course, the way all the lines work together must be attractive as well. But this works pretty well. I'm not sure what this is, but it fills the space nicely. It kind of looks like overalls, or maybe it's bizarre. It would work for bizarre because it kind of looks like an alien face as well. So there's the eyes and the mouth, I guess, and the face and the neck, but who knows. Okay, yeah, so you should have, let's see, if you did 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, I guess is what you would use. Okay, that's it for this one. Okay, for the final for the line project, the first thing that you need to do is go into Moodle and download the template that I have provided for you called Line Project Final Template. And click on the template. Make sure that you're using either Chrome or Firefox. If you use Safari, you can have some problems downloading the files. So anyway, in Chrome, you click on it, it puts it as your selection tool, and click and drag around. Of your 16, your 12 best, and you can see this is 12 squares. Open, so it opened a new one, but either Chrome or Firefox. So it opened a new one, but anyway, we only need one. Okay. In Chrome, you click on it, it puts it down here, just click on it, and it opens it up in Illustrator. And I already had one open, so it opened a new one, but anyway, we only need one. Okay. So, you're going to be taking of your 16, your 12 best, and you can see this is 12 squares, and these are also larger squares than your originals, which you'll be able to tell in a moment that they are larger in scale. And this is where you're going to copy and paste your best 12 into this file. Alright, so I have one of the students' files here, and you can see their scans layer, so we're going to turn that off so that you can just select the artwork. And so the easiest way to select the artwork is to use your selection tool and click and drag around the selection so that you're sure to select everything. And then Command G to group that so that it moves as one unit. And then you're going to Command C to copy it, and then you're going to go to the template that I provided, the line project, and you're going to place this file, or actually copy and paste your artwork into this file. Okay, now you may run into this as well. It says you are attempting to paste or drag into one or more layers that are locked or hidden. So as you can see,